Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the 3 wide receivers that the Bucs had a formal interview with at the NFL Combine. Again, thank you so much to Pewter Report for compiling this list. Not a lot of wide receivers that the Bucs talked to at the Combine, but there are still a couple of interesting names in there. The first name is Jaylen McMillan, 6'1", 197 pounds, out of Washington. Now, he's graded to be an average backup or a special teamer. Hey, I mean, could be a kickoff return specialist for the Bucs. Ran a 4.47 40-yard dash, a 1.53 10-yard split, 37-inch vertical jump, 10-foot 7-inch broad jump, a 6.94 three-cone drill, and a 4.18 20-yard shuttle. This is a guy who did some pretty interesting stuff at Washington. 79 receptions, 1,098 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns in 2022. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. And then in 2023, he had some time where his play really just dropped off. 559 receiving yards and 5 receiving touchdowns in his last year at Washington. Now, this is interesting because the Bucs did interview, as I talked about in the quarterbacks video, they did take a look at Michael Penix Jr. They did take a look at Jaylen McMillan. Did they ask McMillan about Michael Penix Jr.? Did they ask Michael Penix Jr. about Jaylen McMillan? I don't know. I mean, I would say the answer is probably, and that's whenever you start to see some of those threads connected. Maybe I could see them being genuinely interested in McMillan as a late round prospect, depending on what round he is taken in. Maybe round 6, maybe round 7, something along those lines if he is available. It's going to be one worth paying attention to. I've talked about wide receiver being a luxury pick for the Bucs in this upcoming draft, and I still 100% believe that, but I do think a guy like McMillan is a low risk, fine reward type of player, right? He's going to be a guy who you can just see what he can do, has a good build at 6'1", 197, and maybe you can just grow him and see what he can offer you in the future. And you need good backups. I've talked about the Bucs' second half of the wide receiver room being a little bit shaky in terms of wide receiver depth. I think a guy like McMillan would just help add to that room a little bit more. The next guy, Florida State wide receiver Keon Coleman. I'm not going to spend too much time on him because we've talked about him so much on this channel. He had a top 30 visit with the Bucs. He had a combine interview with the Bucs. 6'3", 213 pounds. Is a guy that I think the Bucs could very well be interested in, and it seems like they are expressing a lot of interest in him. Again, it's not for nothing whenever a team brings in a guy for a top 30 visit, has a formal interview with him at the NFL Combine. Obviously not in that order, reverse the order, but the Bucs seem to like what they see from Coleman. And you got to ask, is this a guy who could be a successor to a Chris Godwin or a Mike Evans? He was the leading receiver at Michigan State and at Florida State the past couple of seasons. He gets comparisons to Drake London, a guy who went in the first round of his respective draft. So I really like Keon Coleman. I know a lot of people like Keon Coleman as well. And I do think this one is like, ooh, that's interesting that there's so many threads connected right now to Keon Coleman and the Bucs. So while it would be a luxury pick to take a wide receiver early, maybe keep an eye on this just because of all the threads that have been there. Finally, you have Brian Thomas, wide receiver out of LSU. 6'3", 209 pounds. Now, I don't got to tell you guys, LSU wide receivers are very good. I mean, very, very, very good at what they do. So many good wide receivers have come out of LSU, even in just recent memory. And I think that Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be no exception. 6'5", 198. Or sorry, 6'3", 209. I don't know what this website's talking about, Sports Reference, but 6'3", 209, big-bodied wide receiver. A 4.33 40-yard dash at 6'3", 209. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. I have no doubt that this guy's going to go pretty early. I don't think he's going to be there in the Buccaneers' range, so to speak, in the later first rounds. If he was, I mean, heck, the Bucs might just consider taking him because best player available. But there really aren't even any other connections here as well between some of the other position groups that the Bucs had formal interviews with at the Combine. So it is interesting that Brian Thomas Jr. is there. Again, I don't necessarily think he's going to be a guy that's going to be there whenever the Buccaneers make their selection, but boy, oh boy, this guy is going to be good. He's got, in my opinion, he's got number one receiver potential, and at the very least, for the Bucs, he'd be a guy that could be, again, that successor, much like Keon Coleman, a successor to maybe a Godwin whose contract's up after this year, and maybe an eventual successor to Mike Evans as well. So that's it. I mean, not a lot of wide receiver stuff to go over. By the way, Brian Thomas Jr., 1,177 receiving yards and 17 receiving touchdowns at LSU in 2023. Oh my goodness, dude's an absolute beast. But that is it for the wide receivers today. Again, not a lot. It makes sense that the Buccaneers didn't interview a lot of these guys at the Combine, but I would love to get your guys' thoughts and opinions. What do you think about the 3 receivers the Bucs did interview at the Combine formally? I know a lot of love for Keon Coleman. What do you guys think about Brian Thomas? What do you think about Jaylen McMillan maybe as a later round prospect as well? Let me know your guys' thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, guys, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.